I'm Richard Weiss, and I've been an architect for over 20 years. And today, I'm going to talk about the architecture of some famous movie bars. This is Gaston's Tavern from Beauty and the Beast. Here's what jumps out to me. This is obviously a French provincial country style, and you can tell because all of the standards of that period are represented, including wood sticking on the walls. These are called half beams, and you've got a wood chair rail. And what's interesting about that, there's a wainscot below it, but this actually served a functional purpose, which was to make sure if a chair hit the wall, it would hit this rail instead of damaging the wall surface itself. Some characteristics of a tavern or pub are they generally have low ceilings. I can see these columns, which are supporting a wood truss with decorative inlays, corbels that surround the liquor display. Corbels are an architectural design feature that were often used to support beams, and in this case, it's got a scrolling detail that creates a way to infill the angle to resist stresses. Gaston is standing in front of a fireplace hearth, which was the center of warmth in these taverns. You can see kegs here, and just out of frame, there's a liquor wall. And this was really like a community center at the time in France where people would gather. These kegs are what are called a direct alcohol delivery system. Today, we would do that with glycol, which are refrigerated tubes that would run through the building to taps. You can see here that these kegs are directly tapped. But nowadays, if you're a beer bar, your taps would be front and center because that's what you would want to highlight. So let's draw the floor plan of Gaston's to see if it would function well as an actual bar. And this is actually a pretty great layout for a bar because a bartender can stand here. He's got a really long bar to allow for a lot of patrons, but they can see every vantage point from the center of the bar, which is very effective. Now we're going to look at the cantina in Star Wars.
We don't serve their kind here.
What?
Your droids. They'll have to wait outside. We don't want them here.
Let's wait out by the speeder. We don't want any trouble.
Mos Eisley Cantina is the quintessential dive bar. Some of the elements that make this a dive bar, the low-slung ceilings and how dimly lit the entire space is. But the main element that makes this a dive bar is the clientele. And to quote Obi-Wan Kenobi,
"You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy."
Here are the things that jump out to me. You see a curved horseshoe bar. It's a symmetrical building. The bar itself runs almost the length of the building. One of the really fun elements of this bar are these tubes that run from the ceiling down to these distribution systems, which is probably an intergalactic glycol system. This bar has been recreated in Disneyland and Disney World, but the ceilings are a little high. Mos Eisley was inspired by the architecture of Tunisia, where these scenes were filmed. And you can see, as Luke and C-3PO enter the bar, the predominant architectural material is sand. There's very little architectural relief in the building other than decorative stripes along the archway. And there are booth nooks off to the side, which allow for intimate conversations. And this nook over here is where Han Solo shot Greedo. I just made it clear who shot first. Now it's canon. And one of my favorite movie bars, the Gold Room in The Shining.
A little slow tonight, isn't it?
It's in this scene where Jack ends his
5 miserable months on the wagon.
So here's everything that jumps out to me in this bar. You've got a tiered ceiling with light coffers that all move in the direction of a central stage. This material is actually small mirror tiles, which also run down the walls. In the foreground, you can see the bar front, which has a drink rail, and all of the setups needed to make cocktails. One of the great things about this bar is that The Shining was entirely movie sets. At the time, it was the largest movie set ever built. Yet they went to great detail to make sure that this bar was ergonomic, fancy, and beautiful. This uplight is created by cutting a channel into the wood bar, setting an acrylic or glass piece, in this case, with a light strip underneath. While there are some taps here, you can see that the predominant is liquor, which is typical of a cocktail bar or a hotel bar. So one of the keys to this bar design is that a bartender can stand in the center here, make drinks, and if he needs alcohol from the back, he can reach everything with just a pivot as opposed to having to take a step.
You set him up and I'll knock him back, Lloyd. One by one.
Next, we're going to talk about hot tracks from the movie Boogie Nights.
Listen, don't you ever stay away from my club that long again, okay? You got it.
The opening scene of Boogie Nights is a 3-minute long tracking shot, perhaps my favorite shot in movie history. As we go through it, I'm going to draw out the layout of this bar. So Boogie Nights Hot Tracks is a rectangular space with a recessed entry vestibule and of course the Hot Track sign at the corner. Maurice takes Jack and Amber Waves through the entry vestibule, which faces the DJ booth and the dance floor, which is the heart of any disco. From there, he drops them off in the lounge area and then transverses back to the bar. We don't get a great shot of the bar, but we can tell where it's located and we can tell that they're working hard back there. From there, he goes back, points, and then heads to the dance floor, the center of the action. The essential element of any nightclub that's a disco is the dance floor. Unlike many real discos that had no seating at all, it was just a giant dance hall with a bar, this also has lounge elements, including wraparound seating on both sides, flanking the central element. This bar allows for a multitude of activities, including sitting around with your friends, dancing, and cocaine. Now, the main thing that makes a disco is disco music. So as you can see from this still, the dance floor is reminiscent of the dance floor in the movie Saturday Night Fever starring John Travolta. You can see the DJ booth behind, which is the center point of any disco bar, and of course the dance floor with everyone dancing in sync. Now, with the 70s disco movement came discos throughout the country, often inhabiting old, dilapidated spaces where the exteriors would remain the same, but inside would be a hidden treasure of lights and collars and all of the elements that you needed to have a good time. Next, we're going to talk about Rick's Cafe in the 1942 movie Casablanca.
Will I see you tonight?
I never make plans that far ahead.
Give me another.
Of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, we're going to talk about this one. The entire movie was filmed on a studio set. So Rick was an American expat, and he created Rick's Cafe American in Casablanca, but all of the details are Moroccan. You can see here, though, they replicated the Moorish architecture of Casablanca, including these pointed arches, metal lights with perforations to cast shadows on the wall. Now, as far as bar layouts go, Casablanca is not necessarily ideal. You've got a front entry, there's a bandstand and a piano, some decorative Moorish columns. One of my pet peeves about this bar is that the bar itself is so remote from the front entry that you have to weave through the entire crowd in order to get a drink. It also faces a curved stairwell that goes up to the second level. This bar had poker tables, live music, and apparently some papers that could get people out or into anywhere. And that's Rick's Cafe.
Cheerio.
Those are some of the architectural details of some of my favorite movie bars. There's a multitude of bars I'd like to talk about, like saloons, speakeasies, honky-tonks, and so many others that we don't have time to cover. Let me know what other movie architecture you'd like me to talk about next in the comments.